Hey folks, so I want to make a quick video around value-based pricing. As I talk to agencies and solution partners, one of the biggest frustrations or challenges that they face is pricing their services appropriately. They oftentimes get into cost-based pricing, leaving a lot of profit and margin on the table. They suffer from scope creep, and then eventually with bad clients. So I want to touch briefly on some tactics and tools that you can implement. First of all, this is all inspired by and directly stolen from Implementing Value Pricing by Ron Baker. Highly recommend the book. All the ideas in this slide deck are from his book. So good to know there. First of all, I just want to lay the foundation for how most people think about pricing. The first way to think about it is cost-based pricing. This is primarily focused on the hourly rate that you have for your firm, and it's focused on the inputs that you have. My cutting down tree analogy is it's thinking about how many whacks at a tree or how long you're sawing on a tree versus how much firewood you're producing or clearing a forest, whatever it might be. The downside to cost-based pricing when you're focusing on the inputs like this is it can be very easily commoditized. If you're talking about we'll write you 5 blog posts this month, the customer now thinks that the value you're bringing to the table is the 5 blog posts, which if they go on the internet, anyone can write blog posts much cheaper than that. So it tends to get commoditized. Value-based pricing is the other way to think about this. Much more focused on the goals, KPIs, metrics, the outcomes. It focuses on the value that you're creating, the outputs. This utilizes intellectual capital, which is really a differentiator for you and your firm. It's the reason you're in business, and it's the reason why people are coming and asking you for advice and help, because you have that intellectual capital, and that's what they're paying for. They're not paying for the execution piece. So the two theories of pricing are cost plus pricing. This is known as the labor theory of value, which essentially looks at the services that you're doing that you want to offer. What is that going to cost your firm? What price should you charge to get the margin you want? How does that create value? And then how do you relay that to the customer? Value pricing, or the subjective theory of value, is really the opposite of that, flips it on its head. It starts with the customer in mind first, identifies what value you're bringing to the customer, then you can price appropriately, then take into consideration the cost and the services to execute on that value that you're bringing. It's really the reverse order of how most people think about it. Here's an example that I like to bring up. If we're talking about providing a blogging service, content creation, if you will, for 2 different customers. The first one's a B2B manufacturing company. Their average selling price is $10,000 for when they land a new customer. Every 10 leads that they bring on board, 2 of them roughly turn into customers, about a 20% conversion rate. Your firm is going to start blogging for them and actually generate 6 new customers over the course of a month, we'll say. The value that you brought to that table is $60,000 for content creation that generated 6 new customers. If you also talk to a car wash business whose average selling price is, let's say, $20 for a car wash, they have the same conversion rate of customers you're trying to reach out to who are going to eventually become paying customers. You're blogging for them, you generate 6 customers, you've generated $120 worth of value. There's a stark difference between $60,000 you're bringing to your client versus $120. Where most firms fall short is they'll charge the same price for these services because they view it as the input that they have as a firm. Rhetorical question, should you be blogging or should you be pricing that the same for the 2 customers? Nope, absolutely not. So firms in the past have really been focused on revenue, which is essentially people power times efficiency times the hourly rate. This is why agencies are absolutely maniacal about tracking hourly rates. They're trying to get the most out of their account managers, their staff as possible, because time is money, which eventually leads to burnout of the account managers or staff members of the agency. And also makes it very difficult to increase retainers to add more value to the client because it's directly correlated with the amount of time you're spending with them. This needs to change. The new way to think about it is the profit side of it. Taking intellectual capital times the effectiveness. So what is the value that you're bringing to it? And then times the price you're going to charge for that. A quote from the book is, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. And then I like this little bit here. We are interested in finding the right customers at the right price that are consistent with our purpose and values, even if that means turning away customers. We all know you've probably got customers that you absolutely love. They're your most profitable customers. You wish you had 100 more like them. And then you have the customers that constantly push back on price, are constantly asking for more and more without paying for more, and are just a pain. So keep that in mind as we think about bringing on or taking away business. Next, why do companies buy from agencies? The two main reasons: expertise and risk aversion. As an example, again, if my kitchen sink breaks, there's enough information out there on the internet. I can go and learn how to do everything I need to do to fix it. I can take the time to educate myself, and then I can go about trying to fix it. It's much faster and more convenient for me to hire someone that's an expert. They have the intellectual capital already to fix my problem. Also, there's a risk of me fixing it incorrectly and keeping the problem, or even worse, making it worse. So by hiring an expert, bringing them into the fold, I'm paying them to alleviate the risk from me. With that comes a premium price because they're offering their expertise and averting risk for me. And I think an important piece to highlight on premium price is before you can charge a premium price, you have to first believe internally as an agency or a firm that you are worth it. If you don't think you're worth it, then your customers aren't going to believe it. Confidence is something we'll touch on a few times throughout this. This is a graph I want to share that really highlights value capturing and value creation. So on the left, the bar, you can see the cost that it takes to produce a service or produce value. Above that is the price that your agency or firm charges. The delta between the price and the cost is the value that you're capturing as an agency. That's profit for you. You've identified the value that you're capturing from there. That right-hand graph is really where a lot of agencies and firms fall into, is the difference, the delta between how much the customer's profit's going up, how much value the customer's getting, versus what it costs you. That's truly the value that you're creating for the customer. When we get away from cost-based pricing, we get into value-based pricing. The more we have a firm grasp on that value created graph, the higher price we can charge and the more value we can capture as an agency or firm. And the customer still gets value out of it above and beyond the price that we're charging. Very important to keep in mind. This is the coolest graph I've ever made in my life, but there are essentially two kinds of buyers in the world: price buyers and value buyers. The only way to get someone from a price buyer to a value buyer is through education. The example I use is if I'm going to buy a TV and I don't know anything about TVs, naturally my inclination is to try and get the biggest TV at the cheapest price. If the TV salesperson, if that's even a profession anymore, is really good at their job, they'll do a good job of educating me on the value of the resolution, the value of warranties, or whatever it might be. And actually, more so than that, asking me questions and doing discovery around what am I really looking for? What do I value in my TV set? Is it clarity of vision, whatever it might be? And then when they can identify what I truly value and educate me on why I need a specific solution, they can then charge me a more premium price, and I'll understand the value that I'm getting from that and why I'm paying the premium price. Where most agencies and firms fall short is they go to charge for a premium price for the value that they know they're creating, but they haven't done the steps to identify, one, if it's value that the customer has, or two, they're not educating the customer on that value. So it's often just seen as a high price tag without an understanding of the value that comes with it. Briefly, I want to talk about the 5 C's of value. So first, comprehend value to the customer. First and foremost, this is the most important thing. This comes through good discovery and good conversation up front at the beginning of the sales process. Why does the customer want you to provide the service? Why can't they do it in-house? Why do they need your help? Not the technical reasons, but really digging deeper into what they're expecting, what they're desiring. When you know what that is, you get a firm grasp on the value that they're seeking. Second is creating the value for the customer. And oftentimes we think of value as just quality work. It's not. It's the entire customer experience, the level of service that they can expect from you, the experience that they can have as they're working with you through the partnership. It's helpful at this time to kind of guide them through the journey of what they can expect when they engage with you or your firm. Outside of the inputs that you're giving, the quality work that you're doing for them, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into generating value, like flexible pricing terms, service guarantees. So think broadly about the value that you bring to the table, not just the price and the quality of work. The third one is to communicate the value that you're creating for your customers. Customers that are hiring on agencies or firms don't do that very often. In fact, maybe once or twice in their career, you might talk to someone who's hired on 3 or 4 agencies, but that's more of an outlier. However, you as a firm, you're selling people constantly. You have more than one or two clients, hopefully, at this point. You've got several clients that you've worked with in the past. Customers aren't collecting data or educating themselves, but you should be as a firm and being able to communicate that value that you're providing. This should be a core competency for your team. They should understand the value they bring to the table. 4 is convincing customers that they must pay for value. Again, this comes in with the pre-qualification, understanding what they value, and then education. Why should they pay more for you for the value that they'll get? If there's no education there, all they see is a larger price tag. Along the confidence vein, I love point C here is you're going to talk about price with the customer, either at the beginning or at the end of the engagement. So it's important that you're very confident with the value that you're providing because it'll show in the price that you're asking of them. And then finally, number 5C, capture value with strategic-based pricing based on value, not on cost or efforts. Again, hourly pricing treats all the customers the same and prices the services, not the customers. Thinking back to that B2B manufacturing versus the car wash example, we're not pricing based on the inputs that we have. We're pricing based on the value that we're delivering to them. We can only understand the value we're delivering to them when we ask good questions, pre-qualify up front, and then educate them on how we can get them that value. A couple of what and how people buy, just into human psychology here. What people buy is good feelings and solutions to their problems. This first quote I really like, don't tell me how good you make it. Tell me how good it is, how good it makes me when I use it. The patient knows the symptoms, the doctor knows the meaning behind them. Again, that intellectual capital, that expertise and the risk aversion, people want to feel good and they want a solution to their problem, not one or the other. Agencies and firms are experts in their field, which is why you exist as a business. We're really good at solving problems. And because of that, we tend to jump prematurely into the solutions without digging deeper into the discovery process to figure out what the customer really wants and what they really value. We should be focused on the whole customer experience, which demonstrates not just competency, but distinction. Again, any agency can offer solutions. They can offer these things. Think about the entire customer's journey and the entire customer experience, what they can expect from working with you. The how behind people buy, it's a lot of psychological things going on here. So price resistance, right? You've heard of sticker shock. This is overcome by really educating them on the value. Prospects who are uneducated want to minimize the cost and maximize value. It's important throughout conversations that we focus on maximizing value. Price bundling is a great way to do this. If you're line iteming out all of your services, it's really all that's doing is highlighting the inputs to what you're offering. When you bundle it together, you're providing a solution and the output that they can expect. This gets them more focused on the value they'll receive as opposed to the cost of what's going into you executing. Don't drop your price. This cheats the customers who are paying full price for the value that you're providing. And this also lowers the value of what you're bringing to the table. Should have confidence behind it. So rather than lowering your price for the same services or offerings, try removing value, less access to your firm, less services, things like that. Payment resistance, folks are resistant to paying, so having customers pay up front, things like that. Payment terms is often overlooked when we talk about pricing, but it really can be an integral part of how you price. Delaying payments, having them pay up front, flexible payment schedules, these are all levers that can be pulled to help with the pricing. And then price anxiety, people have buyer's remorse if they sign up for something. Providing a great customer experience right out of the gate helps alleviate that so they get to the point where they feel comfortable with your firm. There's a lot of risk that goes into how the customer thinks when they're acquiring services from folks. So performance risk, will this even work? Financial risk, am I going to be throwing money away? Time loss, am I going to spend a bunch of time on this and it's not going to work? Opportunity risk, is there another solution that's better than the one I'm going on? And should I have gone that way? Psychological risk, social risk, and then of course, physical risk, which I don't think anyone's being physically harmed in these services, but all of these things play a factor in how people make decisions. Again, back to those 2 reasons why people buy: expertise and risk aversion. If your firm can address these different risk factors that customers feel, the more they'll feel comfortable proceeding with you because you're alleviating the risk for them. Understanding your value proposition is absolutely crucial if we're going to talk about value pricing. Most firms tend to focus on the slang terms you see on all the websites, right? Trusted advisor, who's got a good reputation, a knowledgeable and experienced staff, wide range of customers. It's all about you as a firm. None of these address the experience the customer will have with your firm. So think through that as you think through your value proposition. What's the experience that your customer will be receiving and the value they'll be receiving from engaging with your firm? Not just all about yourself. Great kind of levels here to customer value. Love highlighting these. If you charge for stuff, you're in the commodity business. If you charge for tangible goods, you're in the goods business. If you charge for activities that you execute, you're in the service business. If you charge for customers that spend time with you, you're in the experience. And then if you charge for the demonstrated outcome the customer achieves, you're in the transformation business. The higher up that you go in that ladder, the more of a premium price you can charge for your products. This is the Stanchi smile curve. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's a really great visual depiction of how we can bring value to the customer. This is oftentimes how the engagement with the customer goes. So I think it's important to realize which steps of the process bring the most value to the customer. First and foremost, the diagnose phase. Again, this is the customer coming to you because you have the expertise and they're not sure what they're doing. So your ability to diagnose what's going on in their business and what they need to do to get to the point that they want to be at, their ideal state, there's a lot of value in that. That should be noted. The prescribed phase. Once you know the diagnosis, how are you prescribing them to get there? The create and execute phase have less value to the customer there again. The create phase is simply carrying out these activities. They can go on TaskRabbit or Fiverr or something like that and find other people to do it. And then the measure on the far side of that as well is what's working, what's not. Again, getting away from the low bottom execution part and getting higher up into the strategic intellectual capital. That's really what they're coming to you for. 10 things. This is a list of things that was done in a survey. I forget which survey, but it's 10 things clients want from their agency. So I'll quickly read through these, but make an impact on our business. Don't just be visible. Do more things on spec, meaning invest your time on preliminary work in new areas. Spend time helping them think and help them develop strategies. Lead our thinking. Tell us what our business is going to look like 5 to 10 years from now. Jump on new pieces of information, up to date on the industry and on their business, and then give them the data they need to analyze and make better decisions. Schedule offsite meetings together, join them for brainstorming sessions, make an extra effort to understand how their business works, sits in on the meetings. Help us see how we compare to others, both within and outside of our industry. Help them think higher level. Tell me why our competitors are doing what they're doing. And discuss other things we should be doing. We welcome any and all ideas. Now, I read through all 10 of these because you may have noticed a recurring theme here. They're not asking you to write blog posts for them or post social media things. What they're really asking for is a strategic partner here. Again, expertise and risk aversion. They're coming to you because they need help thinking through these value props. So becoming that partner, lending your intellectual capital and expertise, that's what people really value. And I want to run through the 8 steps to implementing value pricing real quickly. 1 is conversation, absolutely huge. Discovery call, connect call, whatever you want to call it. This is that initial conversation you're having with the customer. This is arguably one of the most important steps in the sales process because it's how we identify the pre-qualification of what do they value, and then also educate them on how we can give them that value. Absolutely crucial to setting the stage for future conversations around price or services. So some common questions to ask the customer to understand their value, right? How do you measure that? What is it now? What would you like it to be? What's the value of the difference? And what's the value of the difference over time? If I land you 10 customers this year, they may be worth $100,000. How long do customers stay with you? Millions of dollars? Now we're starting to get a good feel for the value we can bring to the table. And then if the value is intangible, asking them questions around a scale from 1 to 10 to help you prioritize the value you're bringing. 2, pricing for customers. Taking what you learned in step 1, going back to your internal team. In the book, Baker calls it a value council, but it can be any group of folks inside your organization, and come up with 3 prices: the reservation price, the hope for price, and the fist pump price. I'll explain what those are here. The reservation price should be just the normal profit. This is the bottom, the lowest you're going to go. That is your statement. If they want to go lower than that, you're not a good fit for them. The hoped for price is going to return a supernormal, profit to the firm relative to the risk. This is what you should be gunning for most of the time. It should be received most often. And then the pump fist or fist pump price is really that massive slam dunk home run client that you land, where you're putting in your expertise and it pairs up so perfectly that the value you're creating is massive for the customer and the value you're capturing for your own firm is also massive. It is a win-win situation. These are your ideal clients. But getting a good idea of what these three pricing tiers are and pitching them in that manner. Notice the reservation price is still a normal profit for the firm. You're not operating as a loss leader or anything like that. It's still the bottom line that you're going to draw. Here's some questions to ask internally after your discovery meeting with the client to help you come up with some of this pricing. So what's the customer's cost for not solving the problem? How do we help make their business more valuable? How do we help the customer achieve their preferred vision of the future? And the last question, how do we remove surprises for the customer? Again, going back to that customer experience and risk aversion part. So some really great questions to ask internally here. And then developing pricing options. So again, I'm not going to read this. There's a lot of text on here, but coming up with different pricing options for it, this allows the customers to make their own pricing decisions. Again, with options, there's a psychological piece that comes into play here. You can get into anchor pricing, which allows you to charge higher rates. You can also let them feel out their own price sensitivity. And again, because the lowest on this totem pole or spectrum is the reservation price, even if they choose that, you're still operating at a normal profit. Again, being prescriptive, you can obviously offer that. Here's three options. Here's the one that we would need to implement to carry out your goals and achieve your value. But we realize that there's some different options in play there. And we can remove value from the equations to separate out those pricing with an option to upgrade later. Presenting the options, that's pretty self-explanatory. Nailed it. Here's some rules for presenting pricing, and I want to breeze through these because I think they're important. Always place a timeline on all your proposals. No price should last forever. Otherwise, it should just be on your website. If you're going to take the time for an RFP, there should be a clear and mutual understanding for when a decision should be made and when we should move forward. Obviously, copyright, keep your intellectual property to yourself. Present your most expensive option first. Be proud of it. This is called anchoring, when you start off with the most expensive and then you're backtracking to the most common or most recommended price package. You'll notice this with a multitude of companies, how they price out their options. Don't negotiate with yourself. State your price and be quiet. Don't price qualify saying our normal, standard, or regular is this, but, etc. You're equal with your customers. Have confidence in your ability. Use the word price, not fee. Use the word agreement, not contract. And then have someone who's comfortable talking about the price engage in these conversations. If there's going to be a professional buyer on one end of the table, there should be a professional pricer on the other. 5, customer selection codified into the fixed pricing agreement. After they select something, put it into a fixed pricing agreement, iron out what all is expected on both sides of the table. Proper project management. Now that you've agreed upon this price, what the deliverables are going to be, it's important that you're implementing this internally at your agency to stay on track, not allowing scope creep and all that good stuff. If there is scope creep coming into the picture, implementing change orders, being strict, again, setting good expectations, understanding the value, all those steps that are taken up front helps prevent all the damage down the road. You can be more confident in issuing change orders. And finally, step 8, price, what we call after action reviews, AARs. After every agreement with a customer, new customer you sign on, customer that you lose, take a minute, 30 minutes to an hour, sit down with the team and find out what went well, what didn't. Why do they buy? Why do they not? Did we understand the value we brought to them? Did we price appropriately for that? Did we present it confidently and give them the options they needed? Why or why not did something work? Gives you great insights. If you find that you're nailing 100% of your proposals, this gives you opportunity. Maybe you're not capturing enough of that value. Maybe you're creating more value than you know, and there's an opportunity to increase your retainers. The last slide here is just a call to action for all of you folks watching this. Step number one is to sit down and think over a morning cup of coffee, whatever you like, but what value do you bring to the table? Why does your firm exist? What can you do better than any other firm? What intellectual capital do you have? What's your expertise? Starting by understanding the value that you bring to the equation is step one to going down the rest of the road. Then you can start to price around value and get to the goals that you want. Hopefully this is beneficial. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thanks.